Hello, welcome to the Let's Talk Kids Health Live Show, episode 56. I'm Dr. Nerissa Bauer, your host, and I'm a behavioral pediatrician and CEO of Let's Talk Kids Health. As you know, the concept of this show is to share information about behavioral health, parenting, and family wellness. Each week, I bring you topics and guests to help me advance this mission so that we can all talk together. Now, let us know that you're here by commenting, asking questions, liking, saying hello at any point in time. And if you have questions, feel free to start dropping those in the comment box and I'll ask them of my guests in a little bit. Now, the replay will be immediately available after this broadcast. So if you're watching live and you're like, oh, shoot, so and so would really love this episode, just share it because sharing is caring. And if you don't want to miss future episodes or maybe check out my past ones, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, NerissaBauerMD, follow my blog Facebook page, Let's Talk Kids Health, and join my free parenting discussion group. So today's topic is stress-free mornings with neurodivergent kids with Tina Mathams. Tina is a life and mindset coach for adults with ADHD. She is also the founder of Life with ADHD, a group coaching program, and the Adhd Flicks membership. How awesome is that? Tina lives with her husband, two children, and multiple pets in Brisbane, Australia. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to have you on the show, Tina. I will just tell the backstory. We first met on another show with a mutual friend, Lafayette Mitchell, who is also a
Yep.
guest recently here. And I just loved your energy, your story. So I am so excited to finally have you on as a guest. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you
on.
so much. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, and I will say for those of you who don't know Australia, she's like 5 in the morning. So how dedicated is this? So I am, and this is live. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So I thought I'd just kick it off because I just love to just share your story about how you got into this space, you know?
Yes, yeah, sure. My son was diagnosed with ADHD and autism, and I was set on a mission to find out as much about both as I could, but I landed on ADHD a lot more, and that's purely because as I started reading about it, I realized that I was reading about me and my life as not only as a child but also as an adult, and that really piqued my interest. So I ended up switching my reading and research to adults with ADHD because I didn't know it was a thing in adults. Um, and it just set off this massive, as I said, research and reading. And I thought, okay, I need to look into this a bit more. So I went to get assessed, and eventually I got diagnosed with ADHD. And I could not believe that I was living with this thing that I didn't even know could be a thing in adults. So um, that ended up being diagnosed, and then that set off sort of a kind of a bit like a life assessment. I didn't know what that meant for my life. I didn't really know anything. So I learned a lot about me. I learned a lot from my psychologist who had ADHD as well. And eventually that just led me to a whole community of adults with ADHD. And, it's like I'd found my people. I could relate to them. I felt comfortable with them. So I used to do health and fitness coaching, and I just thought I'd love to get into life coaching. And especially once I realized you could be a life coach for adults with ADHD, I was like, I need to do this. This is, it just lit something in me that I was like, this is what I'm here for. So I went and did my life coach certification, and just led me down that path.
Wow. I mean, your story, I love hearing the story because I'm a behavioral pediatrician. Obviously, I take care of kids with ADHD, but so many of my families, because ADHD is highly genetic, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not the only cause, right? I mean, there's lots of different, we know it's not just one single cause, but a large portion is inherited.
Yeah.
And so many of my parents are like, oh, my goodness, like I'm learning about it and I'm like, wait a second, do I have this? And
Yeah.
I guess, can you back up and tell us, like, what was it that surprised you when you were reading about adult ADHD? What stood out to you?
Just the things that I thought were things that were wrong with me, to be quite frank and honest with you.
Yeah.
I struggled holding down a job for, more than a year or two. I procrastinated all the time. My energy was very up and down, anger outbursts. I struggled a lot with postnatal anxiety as well. And it was just all those little things that I just assumed were just things that were wrong with me. I couldn't seem to fix them. So it was those things that when I started reading about them, that was part of ADHD. I was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I just have ADHD.
Wow. Wow. And you're, again, like I said, so many adults are like, how did I not know? And I think
Yeah.
especially as we're learning more about how ADHD presents in girls and women,
Mhm.
where they tend to be later diagnosed, missed. It's so refreshing to hear your story, and I'm hoping that as people see this episode, or watch it in replay, that they also can get some hope if they're feeling
Mm.
a little out of sorts, if they're like, wait, how do I go about doing this? It's not too late, right? Because
Yep.
everything that I heard about when you were sharing your story just now is, even after that diagnosis, like, you actually got hopeful. You found your tribe. You found, like,
Mm.
lots of things fell into place after that for you, didn't it?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It completely changed my life for the better. I mean, living with ADHD can be difficult, and I'm not going to say it's not, but
Hmm.
it just opened up my eyes to what could be with ADHD, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think someone just posted, thank you, Sarah Beth, parent of a 6-year-old boy diagnosed with ADHD, newly diagnosed last year, looking forward to learning more today. Mornings are the worst.
Mm.
I know. I mean, like, I will tell you, when you told me what you wanted to talk about, I was like, oh, yes. I mean, Sarah Beth, thank you so much for watching. Okay, so before we do that though, can we talk about, like, so now you've got the diagnosis, your son's got the diagnosis. I mean,
Mhm.
how can an AD diagnosis actually change family life?
Yeah, it really did. It changed it, I guess, sort of for positive and negative, really, mostly positive,
Mm-hmm.
because, the same thing, not that we ever thought there was something wrong with our son, but we knew there was something there and we couldn't really help him because we didn't know what was there. So when he got his diagnosis, it just really helped us be able to learn more about it and put strategies and things into place to really help him.
Mm-hmm.
And it absolutely changed, for both of us, it changed, us as a family because, now we do need to be mindful of, what goes on in his brain, what goes on in my brain. My daughter's going to get assessed next month as well. So she's very, very sort of positive that she's got it. So, it absolutely, and it changed obviously my husband's life too, because now he's living with at least 2 neurodivergent people. So he's got a lot to learn and, sort of put things into place to help him be more understanding and more okay with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so true. I mean, I think, when kids are in the mix, obviously family, I mean, this affects not just the individual, but the entire family. And
Mm.
what you're talking about there is so, I love that your family's going on this journey of trying to develop a new rhythm, trying to understand how to work with your
Mm.
ADHD and thrive with it.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk then about, like, what you've learned about how to, again, the big question is, how can we make mornings with neurodivergent kids run more smoothly? Because, again, when I saw this title and we posted it, a lot of families were like, oh my goodness, yes, can we talk about this?
Yeah. Oh, it's it's been a learning curve, that's for sure. I
Maybe,
used to be,
just describe like what your mornings were like, and then,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, they were very, very stressful. I struggled to put a routine into place. And, because both my son and I were diagnosed when he was at school. So we had at least 2 or 3 years of schooling where these were our typical mornings. They were stressed and they were rushed, and I didn't know how to get him to put even his shoes on because I didn't know why he couldn't put his shoes on. Um, so once I sort of started learning about it and realized that there were things that he just couldn't do himself without being asked quite a few times. And even for myself, after I was diagnosed, I was like, well, now I know why I'm struggling to do things of a morning. Sometimes I'd forget to pack the school lunches until, 5 minutes before we're out the door. So it really took some learning and some guidance from what I was reading. And I quickly realized that a stress-free morning starts the night before. So I don't do a whole lot the night before. I know a lot of parents do. They'll do lunches the night before or things like that. But I at least do, just check that things are ready for the morning. So we've got school uniforms. We know where the shoes are because often we've lost our shoes in the morning and that adds 15 minutes. So we know where the shoes are. There's a fresh, clean lunchbox ready to go, all that kind of stuff that at least I know when I get up in the morning that that's already there. I don't need to wash anything. I don't need to start finding things like that. So that definitely helps the night before. And then getting up in the morning is, just getting up that little bit earlier for me. I make sure that I have some time to myself because I know that once the kids are up, it's going to be chaos. They're going to want to watch TV and they're going to want to do this and do that. And we're going to be really rushed. So I make sure I get up a little bit before and just make sure I get some thinking time and some me time, even if it's just to sit for 10 minutes and have a coffee or something like that. Mm-hmm. That way it helps sort of my brain think about what I need to do, what's about to come, and just give me that little bit of time just to run around and, make sure we still do have those things, we know where the shoes are and all that kind of stuff. So that's part of it. And then, once the kids are awake, it's making sure that they know what's expected of them. So it's a lot of communication, which doesn't always go smoothly with neurodivergent children, because especially my son wants to play his Nintendo and he wants to do this, anything but getting ready for school. So it's communication that they know what they need to do, whether that's, getting their shoes, getting their school uniform, things like that. And then it's, just ensuring there's enough time. I usually leave a bit of a buffer as well. So if I think that the school lunches are going to take 10 minutes, then I'm going to leave 15 minutes, sometimes even 20 if I do need to give myself that bit of extra time, because again, the rushing and not knowing where things are and things like that is what really I have found will add to the stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you walk us through a little bit more? So I love the tips that you said, that the first thing is thinking about the night before. What are some of the minimum things that you need to do to have ready so that you're not doing laundry, you're not trying to find and hunt down shoes, in the morning. So I love that suggestion. But I'm curious to know, because you said communication with kids when you wake them up. So you build in a little buffer just so like even the 10, 15 minutes, just have coffee, wake up yourself and kind of get like ready to like start. And then you go wake up your children, right? So how do you have tips for that? Like, do you communicate in the moment with them? Do you like, how do you set up that communication so it goes well? Or is it sometimes it doesn't go well sometimes?
Oh, look, we're all human.
Yes.
Sometimes it does not go well. And, that's the thing, some mornings are still stressful because they've woken up late or they're just not having a good day. Even though they're children, they are human. They're going to wake up and, not be, absolutely perfect. I mean, no children is, but you know what I mean? So for them, it's just giving them time to wake up. I'm definitely not on them as soon as they wake up because I used to do that and it just blew up. They need time to definitely wake up and, do what they need to do. So it's letting them, wake up, do what they need to do. And then once sort of I know that they're awake and they're sort of ready to go, is when we'll sort of start the process of, okay, it's a school day. These are the kinds of things that you need to do. And even my son, he's in grade 4 this year, and he still needs somebody to tell him that he needs shoes and he needs uniforms and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in the moment, though, I guess when you're kind of giving him those reminders, how do you keep yourself from getting stressed, maybe getting upset or frustrated? Because, sometimes parents are like, well,
Mm.
he should know this. I mean, I keep
Yeah.
saying this over and over. I mean, I think part of it is education, right? About
Yep.
ADHD, a big part of it. But like, what are
Mm-hmm.
any other tips that you found that helps you stay sane in the moment?
I guess just for me, it's more just knowing that outside of that,
Mm-hmm.
everything's going okay. So I'm on track. I'm on track to make the lunches, or if they've already been made or something like that. I try to keep my cool by knowing that even though he's struggling and maybe I'm struggling communicating some things with him,
Mm-hmm.
that's just that thing. At least everything else is running smoothly. And that's why I really invest the time and things like that to make sure that's running smoothly, because at least if that's okay over there, I'm a bit more equipped to deal with what's over here with him.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
trying to take control over things you can and
Yeah.
and and planning, pre-planning all of that so that it does go
Mhm.
smoothly, so that if
Yeah.
something else comes up, you
Yeah.
can kind of focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that that's really helpful information because again, mornings notoriously are just stressful, especially if you
Mm.
have that time limited, um, you know, uh, period of time to get ready. Do your kids take the bus or do you drive them to school? I mean, all those
Yeah, I
other
just
extra
drive them up.
pressures.
Yeah.
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 So in terms of this, I mean, how did you create this system? Did you do it all at once? Did you kind of refine and do steps like as you went, as you
Yeah.
were learning? How?
Yeah, it was more as I was learning, and I'm still learning, and we're
Mhm.
still implementing. The school year here has just started, so
Mhm.
it's still even okay. Well, what's going to work this year? They're that year older now. Is there something that I can implement? So it's definitely been a step-by-step process, and as you said, education has been so key to all of this. It's just that learning what other people do, what might work for us. The whole thing about what works for somebody might not work for you. So it's a process of trial and error as well. And also just a process of just, being okay with the fact that it's not going to go smoothly every single morning. As you said, you control the things that you can, but if something pops up that is out of your control, it's having the mindset that you can be okay with that. That's okay because it's not every day that pops up. It's not the whole morning that's popped up. It's just
Mhm.
this one isolated thing that you just can't control. So you deal with it best you can, and you control what you can.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. I especially thank you for being so candid about kind of your family situation and your story. I talked yesterday in my Teach Me ADHD community with Dr. Lola Day. She's a pediatric cardiologist, also has ADHD. Her daughter has ADHD, and I asked her this question. I said, "Do you notice like I?" When she's dysregulated or upset, are you more quick to get dysregulated? And like, how do you manage that? And I guess I'm going to ask that to you too, because
Yeah.
you and your son together, all about ADHD now,
Yeah.
but there are probably times where it's still stressful in that way, and
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
share some tips on how to manage that.
Yeah, that is a tough one, because we do. It's my son will start with his emotions and his dysregulation, and that will set me off. That'll just
Hmm.
it's like something in my brain just clicks, and it sets me off as well. So again, it's just putting into place strategies for myself to be able to have the mindset and have the knowledge that I can hold myself back, because I'm an adult, he's a child, even though we still do, we still have that dysregulation, at least I know that I can deal with it a little bit better. I have the knowledge and the education. Again, it's all about education and knowledge that even though that's going to happen, I'm the adult and I need to be able to put things into place so I don't start melting down as well, because it's a really fine line to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So again, that's where the things come into place, like, waking up that little bit earlier. So I've had my time, because if I wake up and the kids are awake and I haven't had that time to wake up, then, that sets off my emotions very quickly as well and make me like really irritable. So it's just little things like that you'll start to understand within yourself, what things that you do need to be able to deal with that emotional dysregulation in the morning, or, the meltdowns or the tantrums or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So if you're watching and have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to put that in the comment box. I think while we're waiting to see if there are any other questions or comments. So Tina, tell us a little bit now about, thank you for all those tips, by the way, and sharing from your personal experience. But can you tell us a little bit more about what you do outside of, once you get the kids to school and all of that? What do you do otherwise?
So, as you said at the beginning, I am a life coach for adults with ADHD. I have a couple of group programs as well. So, my most recent one is something called Adhd Flicks, which is a kind of like a Netflix for ADHD. Lots of short videos, resources, basically a place where somebody can come and get access to a whole lot of information. And it's still growing. It's still rather new. So there's still a lot of information to come, but it's going to be information on parenting and business if somebody owns a business, and mindset and emotions and energy and all that kind of stuff. So that's really, really exciting. And there's, going to be other people come on and share, what they know about ADHD and things like that. So, and I also do one-to-one coaching. So my days are all about, making content for those platforms, and also my social media, checking in with clients, all that kind of stuff. So it's, and that sort of helps as well for my mornings, because I know that once I've gotten through getting the kids to school and everything like that, then I get to, do something that I absolutely love. And that really sort of helps my mindset as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. I mean, I think as parents, sometimes we're so obviously invested in our children. And then when we have kids with special needs, they, obviously need even more of that love and attention too. But sometimes in the process as moms, we sort of lose our own self-identities, and it can, I think that's one of the things that you just said that really is important in terms of our own mental health, is to really try to nurture our own, our own self-passions, our own things, because it's really important to keep some of that there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd 100% agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for those of you who don't know, Tina is she is so fun. You have so much good content on social media. So I'm going to just put up here, please follow her on Instagram. She is the ADHD accountant. We actually didn't talk about that. You do some accounting?
Yeah, I am. I am a qualified accountant, and I still do some accounting, as we were discussing earlier.
Yeah. So that's how I first got to know you, after I met you on the Roundtable event last year. And then you're on Facebook, Life with ADHD Facebook, and YouTube, also Life with ADHD. So, and then do you have a separate website if people are interested in connecting with you?
Yeah, so my website is lifewithadhd.co. And if you go there, all the links are there as well.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I mean, is there any other last words of wisdom that if you had to share with a parent who's watching this?
Yeah, I'd say, just be open, be curious. I don't know if everybody who watches this will have ADHD, but, we are very curious creatures. So just be open and curious as to how you might be able to change up your mornings. And if you need help, please get help. There's people out there who can help you, parent coaches, therapists, pediatricians, anything like that, that will be able to give you some really, really good advice and some coaching around mornings as well. So I always tell people, please don't be afraid to reach out to somebody, because, you know, just that extra help and guidance can be an absolute godsend.
I mean, it really does take a village, really.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And I'm just curious, one last question that just sort of let me sort of think about this was, you know, when you're designing or maybe tweaking components of your morning routine, you know, based on kind of how it went and all of that, how involved do you make the kids in this? I mean, like, did you kind of have a family meeting about it, or you just kind of coach, like helping them in the moment?
Yeah, I kind of just do it in the moment. If it's a big change, so you know, they used to have access to technology in the mornings. Sometimes they still do, but it used to be most mornings they'd have Nintendo or TV time or something like that, and that made it extra stress. So it's something like that big change. We did involve them, and it was, okay, sit down. This is how this is going to change. This is why, and I kind of gave them the lead up to it. But if it's just small tweaks, it's just more in the moment. It's just like, okay, well, we're going to do this now because of this. Especially because my son isn't going to remember. So, you know, he needs that in the moment. This is why we're doing this. And it sort of helps him process that a little bit better.
So I think the key here is, you know, if there are big changes, obviously sitting down as a family, talking it through with them so that they understand. But even in the moment, it's so important to give the why.
Yeah.
Is
I
what I
agree.
heard you say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that I was about to like finish, but I do want to ask you one more question. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So
That's all right.
like, we talked about screens, and this is like the biggest battle. I mean, you just said you noticed that most mornings before you were doing it. What was it about screens that caused you to kind of retract that most mornings? And do you still allow your kids to have access to them afterwards in the morning, like if they get everything else done? I guess those are the questions.
Yeah, I have told them if they get everything else done, but usually, you know, they're still putting on shoes as we need to walk out the door. So that never happens.
Yeah.
But I have told them, you know, if you get everything done, you can, you know, have some screen time. Sorry, what was the first question?
No, that's okay. I'm so sorry. See, this was not good. So my question is, like, how did you know that the screens were responsible for making things stressful in the morning?
That's right. Yeah, because it was hard to, once they're on it, it's so hard to get them off. And I noticed, you know, once they started getting angry and stressed themselves, and they just want to sit and watch TV, which means that they don't get anything done. And then we're trying to get everything done in the last 15 minutes before we have to leave. So it was just that with their emotions and trying to regulate that, that I was just like, you know, we just can't have this every single morning. If they wake up really early, I might give them half an hour. I'll actually put a timer on, which I do use a timer as well for some tasks in the mornings. I'll put a timer on and be like, that's your timer. If it's so early, you know, have your half an hour, and then it's off and it's getting ready for school. So they know their boundaries and they know what needs to happen once they're off. So it's not some big surprise that, okay, screen's off suddenly and we're doing this now.
Yep.
So it's that helping with them with the transition as well.
Yeah, that is so huge. Thank you. I mean, I noticed, like, I use, you know, visual timers like this, you know, I mean, that they can see exactly. So that's a great tip too. So thank you for sharing that. Now, when you like sat down, had that family meeting, were the first several mornings, the whole week, the couple weeks, was it rough, you know?
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's the thing. You just need to, you know, you need to be aware that it may be a bit of a transition, and, you know, they're probably going to be a bit angry and, you know, they just want to do this, but it's for the greater good of, you know, helping our mornings. And it helps them once they get to school. You know, nobody wants to get to school or work stressed, and, you know, then you can't focus, and, you know, we struggle focusing anyway. So the more that we can do to really help that, the better.
Yeah, I mean, keeping them calm, keeping them happy in other ways, and then just so that they're in that mindset when they go to school rather than, you know, cranky, upset. Yeah, so I think that that's wonderful. Well, thank you for being so kind and letting me ask you a couple more questions. I'm sorry that those just came in my head. I was like, oh, I should ask these questions while I have you.
Yeah,
Um,
that's okay.
but I really appreciate you spending time with us. This was really helpful, and I hope those tuned in or watching now, again, found it helpful as well. So thank you for that. And I think next week, I'm going to just share with you, next week, I'm talking with Elaine Taylor Klaus, where she's going to be talking about taming the triggers in complex families. So for those of you who have been following me for a while, Elaine is also an ADHD coach. She has a family, and she is the author of several books, and she's with Impact Parents. So I'm really excited to have her on the show next week. So if you can tune in at same time, same place. And then again, if you have other topics or guests that you would like me to bring on the show, don't hesitate to reach out to me by email. Follow me on all the social media platforms and just message me there too. I'm always checking, and I love to hear from you because it's Let's Talk Kids Health. We've got to talk about these things, right? And then lastly, it's February, and you know what that means. I'm doing my book club. If you've been watching, I'm doing this one, Raising an Organized Child by my friend, Dr. Damon Korb, developmental behavioral pediatrician. This is a fantastic book for families who live with a child with ADHD. In 5 steps, you'll learn how to boost independence, ease frustration, and promote confidence. So if you want, there's still time. You can always just grab the book and then join us. Dr. Korb will be joining me for an interview towards the end of the month. So please make sure. And then, like I said, please follow Tina. Please follow her. She has such a wealth of information. If you want more information about her coaching program, please do check out her social media platforms and her website. Thank you again, Tina, so much for joining us early in the morning. And I
It's
guess you have
okay.
a school-free school morning to look forward to. So
Yes.
I hope you get your cup of coffee.
I will. I'm going to do that right now.
So thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.